Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's virtual community presentation. This presentation is on special education, and thank you for joining us this evening. This evening, you will be giving an overview on opening up school in the fall in regard to special education. And my name is John Baker, and I'm the superintendent for the elementary school district. And also this evening, we have our board president, Janet Lawson, who's with us. So as we go through the presentation this evening, the agenda is very student focused. You're going to hear information in regard to our public health guidelines. The presentation will be from our special education staff who are exemplary. And then remember, as you're watching the presentation, there is a chat box to the right of the screen. Please ask questions in that chat box, and we're going to do our best to answer them. If we do not have sufficient time to answer your questions, we're going to do the same thing we did last week. Last week for our presentations, many parents asked us questions. We had about 247 questions. Those questions have now all been answered as of today and will be put on our website tomorrow. So we will do the same with the questions and responses that we're unable to answer tonight and put them on the website next week. So thank you so much again for being with us, and I am going to turn this over to, I believe, Liz Wolf, who is the incoming assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction for kindergarten through 8th grade. Ms. Wolf.
Thank you, Dr. Baker. How can you advance the slide, please? So tonight's agenda, next slide, is, as Dr. Baker mentioned, it's our real focus on our students and keeping them safe, keeping them healthy, and keeping them learning. So we'll be talking about the plans that are really, as Dr. Baker said, our incredible staff development, our special ed program staff has been working on these past few weeks, aligned with the public health guidelines. We'll be spending just a little bit of time talking about these guidelines. Many of you may have attended the overview last week, and so we went into great depth about that, so we're not going to do that again. But following that, we will be having presentations from our special education staff. There will be a panel of people available to answer your questions and to talk about their program designs. And just a reminder to please write your questions in the chat box. Next slide. So these are the guidelines. Again, that's a quick review of what we talked about last week. And if you would like more information, if you have more in-depth questions, please write them down. These are guidelines that have come from both our San Mateo County Health Department as well as our San Mateo County Office of Education, working in collaboration, again, with the goal for a safe return to school. And in that, there are 4 pillars, and then there are 3 steps. And so we will talk about how these all mingle together. So the 4 pillars are up around health and hygiene, around wearing face coverings, around maintaining a physical distance, and around limiting the number of people in gatherings. And there's a firm belief that if we implement these 4 pillars well, in tandem with the phased approach or the step-by-step approach, which we'll talk about, there will be a clear path for reopening of our schools safely with the best educational program for your children. Next slide. We'll talk about each one of these pillars briefly. The first one being health and hygiene. It has to do, of course, with temperature taking, and many of you, as you have gone out and gone into different buildings and had different appointments, you've had your temperature taken, and you know that doesn't take very long, but that is something that we will be doing every day for the students and the staff. We are looking at using no-touch thermometers, and we're actually doing some experimenting with a device that is even more, takes temperatures more quickly than the thermometer. So our plan is to get this down to a science so that as we stagger our entrance time onto the school campuses, that we can minimize this amount of time, because taking the temperature will go very quickly. We are developing cleaning protocols, again, as per the public health guidelines, and working very closely with our facilities department to develop general classroom cleaning procedures on an A through B schedule, which means every classroom gets cleaned every day. with electrostatic sprayers used to disinfect the classroom. And then when we talk in just a few minutes about the cohorts, the groups of students who will be coming back to school, there will be deep cleaning between each cohort after they leave to do some of their days in distance learning at home. The restrooms will be cleaned every hour, and we are hiring additional custodians to ensure that that takes place. And then, of course, I know that you and your children are already practicing lots of hand washing, and we'll be following the COVID-19 protocols around hand washing. There will be ample supplies of soap in the classrooms as well as in the bathrooms, and children will be taken to the sinks to wash their hands on a regular basis. Next slide. For pillar number 2, this is about face coverings. And again, we're working under the direction of public health guidelines. There have been a lot of questions about this in terms of the practicality for staff and students to wear face coverings. And so the guidance is that the staff and the students, where practicable, wear face coverings as much as possible. There will be teaching videos to be used with families and students, and then the district will be supplying the staff with reusable face masks, and they will have extras in the classroom for the students, but the expectation is that the parents provide face masks for their students. There will be FM systems in each classroom to project the teachers' voices so that they can be heard. But one of the things that you'll be hearing about when special ed talks about their plans is that not everybody is going to be expected to wear face masks, particularly the very young children, the children who are hard of hearing, the children who need to see their teachers' faces so that they can communicate, or maybe suffering from some levels of trauma or anxiety, and the idea of face masks is very difficult for them. So we are going to be very reasonable with our expectation about students and staff wearing face masks, but as much as possible, we're going to recommend that. Next slide. Physical distancing, of course, you've heard a lot about that. That's trying to stay 6 feet away from everybody at all times. And so in order for that to happen, we are reducing the number of students that can fit into a classroom. So our classes will not be staffed at 28 or 30 children in a class. We will cut that number in half and have 12 to 15 students in the classroom as a cohort. And they will stay together during the day, and they will do their best to stay 6 feet apart at all times. And we recognize that this also isn't a perfect science, that there will be times that children will walk around and that teachers will walk around, but with their masks on and practicing being very careful, we will do the best that we can to implement physical distancing. We also will ask each student to use his or her own materials and not share, so that they don't have to come too close together to share materials. And so each desk will have on it all the materials that each child needs, and that child will not share those materials and will keep them throughout his or her school day and the days that he or she is at school. In terms of keeping physical distance when they're outside in common areas, right now PE, when that takes place, will be taking place outside, most likely not using equipment, because again, we are reluctant to have children touch a bunch of stuff and then not be able to clean it up. So right now there will be activities outside, but probably without equipment, and the kinds of activities that allow children to maintain that social distance. The MUB, or the multi-use room, will be converted to a health waiting area. It won't be used for eating. Children will not be congregating in the cafeteria to eat. If food is eaten on site, and this is something that we're investigating as well, it will be delivered to the classrooms and either eaten in the classroom or possibly in this nice weather, they will go outside and eat. So we're working on that. Very likely the libraries will be closed because, again, the need for cleaning in between each group of children who comes in, we're not able to do that. The teacher rooms will be available for teachers to use to do their copying and their work, as long as they're maintaining social distance. And again, the restrooms and the play structures, not all restrooms, of course, will be closed, but we may be closing some if we're not able to maintain a good cleaning regimen with them. And again, the play structures without, we're not wanting to have a lot of high touch structures that aren't able to be cleaned as regularly as they need to be in between cohorts of students. The offices will have probably plexiglass installed and greeting the visitors using the front door. And we're already starting to install some of the plexiglass. Next slide. Congregations, this is pillar 4, is limiting the size of the gatherings. And so at this time, particularly at the very beginning of school, there will be no large group events. And so the back to school night, open house, festivals, beginning of the year picnics, those kinds of things are canceled at this time. All events will take place remotely. The parent-teacher conferences, the cafecitos with the principals or with Dr. Baker, any parent meetings, field trips will all be done remotely at the beginning of the year at least. And again, we're hoping as we talk about the stages that this will be something that opens up. But again, this is the guidance that we have been given in order to keep your children and our staff safe. There won't be outside agencies on the school sites at this time. And then we will be able to increase the size of groups that can gather as we implement the different phases, which I'm going to talk about next. Next slide. So again, this information is coming from the Pandemic Recovery Framework, which is a catchy title that has been put out by the San Mateo County Coalition for Safe Schools and Communities. If this is something that you would like shared with you, please write that information in your email in the chat and we would be happy to send you a copy of this. Next slide. So this is now the phase-in approach. These have been called phases. They've been called stages. Currently, they're being called steps. And they're giving us the guidelines for what should be happening depending on the number of positive cases of the COVID-19 virus. And so, of course, we're all hoping that that number remains flat or decreasing. And if it does, then we're able to move through the steps. So these are, again, are these county health regulations for step 1, which is the very beginning of school. And so this at this time would be a minimum of 3 weeks. And depending at the end of 3 weeks on our number of positive cases remaining flat or decreasing, we can move on to the next step. But first step, step 1, allows no on-campus visitors, including volunteers. So I know this is very hard for parents because this means that parents are not able to go into the classroom of their children. The only parents who are able to support direct instruction are in the preschool classrooms. Those parents are exempt, but in every other classroom, parents who are not able to attend class with their children or volunteer in their classroom for the first 3 weeks of school. All extracurricular activities are paused at this time. All gatherings are paused, and a gathering is defined as a meeting or social activity outside of the classroom that's more than 4 people. All meetings will be convened remotely, and mentioned this earlier, and again, reinforcing the wearing of face masks by staff and students where practicable, and any others who enter the campus. Step 1. Next slide. Step 2, again, depending on what happens with the number of COVID-19 cases. And so this will be determined by county health, and under guidance from them, this might be per school and might be per district, right? So this is, again, something that's taken very seriously by our county health guidance, that if we move into step 2, that the campus will be open to visitors and volunteers who directly support instruction, with the expectation that they are adhering to the 4 pillars that I talked about earlier. So there is that opportunity for volunteering in your child's classroom. The extracurricular activities will continue to be restricted, and they will be those that are allowed will directly support and intersect with instruction. So these would be the kinds of activities that might be a field trip, a local field trip that students take around the school looking for things. That again, anybody who is involved in this has to follow the 4 pillars. And this doesn't sound like there will be a lot of extracurricular activities, but there would be some opportunities for some things to be taking place. The gatherings can get up to 10 people. Again, practicing the social distancing and wearing masks. Face coverings worn at all times, again, where practicable, especially while transiting the campus and in all common areas. Next slide. So another 3-week stage or step, again, depending, we can move into this on what is happening with the virus and the number of positive cases. But there's a much more opening of the campus that allows volunteers and visitors who are adhering to the 4 pillars. There are opportunities for a few more extracurricular activities with small groups who can physically distance. And we can start having a little bit larger gatherings of up to 50, including sports and activities that allow for physical distancing. And many of these sports and activities are not ones that take place on our elementary campuses, but we could figure out some things that do. And so again, face coverings being worn at all times. Next slide. So given this information, we have also been given the recommendation of how to organize our days for the optimal instruction, following the phases and following the pillars to be able to have children return to school and receive instruction from a classroom teacher. And so right now, that's being called a stable cohort. It's also another way to think of that as a fixed grouping of students. It's a defined group of students whose size is dictated by the ability to implement physical distancing within the classroom or within the learning setting. So at the current time, based on the size of our classrooms, that's between 12 to 15 children. A stable cohort needs to stay together during their time at school, and they stay together, but they may have rotating teachers. And so this actually makes this a little bit easier for a middle school program, for example, that the students stay together, but they can have 4 different teachers come and teach them math, science, social studies, and language arts during the day. So this gives the opportunity for a fuller program, although the students stay together all day long. Next slide. So as we are preparing options for you to consider as we come back to school, right now we're looking at a couple of main options. One is full-time distance learning. We know through our surveys that some of you have felt reluctant to send your children back to school at this time until a vaccine has been established, which may be several months from now. And so that one option could be full-time distance learning, that your children stay home and teachers prepare lessons and send them out. Some synchronous, some asynchronous. So some would be live lessons with a teacher online, and some would be prepared and that they do on their own. The stable cohort model is the other option, where the students, as I just mentioned, come in to school for 2 days a week, 12 to 15 students who stay together, and they work at home 3 days a week. And so this allows for us to get everybody who wants to come back onto the school site. There's not enough space for them to all come back at the same time. So what we're planning now is a Monday, Tuesday group and a Thursday, Friday group. It's 5 days of instruction. 2 of them are in person and 3 of them are the distance learning at home. Wednesdays are the day off for teachers, and students are not on site on that day because the deep cleaning takes place between the 2 cohorts, and the teachers will use that time to plan all of the distance learning lessons that are needed in either the full-time distance learning or in this stable cohort model, where part of the time is for distance learning for the children. Next slide. So, as I just said, the cohorts will attend school on either Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday. And the question has been asked about how can we make sure that students who are in the same family who go to different schools are in the same Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday schedule. And so what our plan is now is to divide the cohorts by last name, so that A through L, more or less, we would have to see how many students are in that cohort, attend Monday, Tuesday, and M through Z attend Thursday, Friday. Thus, if your children are in different schools, that they would still be on the same cohort in class schedule. We know that at least at the beginning of the school year, that school schedules will be somewhat staggered, not tremendously, but somewhat staggered, to allow us to get our temperature testing procedures and protocols down to a science. So students enter classrooms tested, as well as the teachers. Most students will exit campus close to 1 o'clock each day to allow for cleaning of the classrooms per public health guidelines. We're working with this one to see if we can extend this time just a little bit in order to allow for more in-class instructional time, particularly at the middle school level. We know that this is important. And also, as it says here in the next bullet, to be able to provide time for small group instruction. And this will be something that the special ed department talks about as well. This might be the time that RSP takes place, might be the time that English language development takes place, reading and math interventions, targeted language supports. What we're working very hard to not do is track groups of students together all through the day. And so that we would have a stable cohort up through lunchtime, and then stable cohort number 2 with these small groups of children who would receive the additional supports after lunch. So that's what we're checking into, and we don't know at this time if the cleaning schedule is going to allow that. Next slide. So again, this is a preview of what you're going to be hearing a little bit more about, but what we know is that the SDC classrooms will also be following the cohort model, either Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday, the A or the B schedule, and that the service providers will be starting in a distance learning format. So because they're not allowed on campus right at the very beginning, they will be incorporated after the first few days of school, and they will be providing distance learning from the beginning as per the IEP of the child. I'm sorry, RSP means the Resource Specialist Program. The Resource Specialist Program, the RSP students who have received that specialist support will be receiving that either or both from a push-in and pull-out schedule, again, based on the AB proposed cohort model. All of this could be changing based on information from transportation, which is changing, and you'll hear a little bit about this later as well. Last slide for me. Next slide. So what we also know is that things change all the time. And so not only is the guidance changing and actually loosening up just a little bit, like you'll hear about in transportation, but also we're seeing a spike in the COVID virus positive cases right now. And so as we continue to watch what's happening with the health and wellness of people in our county, we need to be prepared to pivot potentially again to full distance learning, possibly on a site-by-site level, possibly on a district level, based on guidance by San Mateo County and the County Health Department. They will tell us what we need to be doing. And in the meantime, as more information is learned about the school settings and the virus and the impact on children and on distancing and all the things that we're learning, the guidance continues to be updated as well. So what we're giving you tonight is information based on what we know now, and we will continue to update that information as the guidance is updated as well. So thank you. Next slide, and then it's on to the special ed department.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Is that my turn now? All right. So my name is Patricia Felina, and I'm the Director of Special Education for the Redwood City School District. And I'm here with a wonderful panel and two of my dear colleagues, Natalie Pigna and Maggie Hone, Natalie being Program Specialist, and Maggie is the Assistant Director for Special Education. Thank you for being here. Before I start, I want to acknowledge district staff, and particularly our special education staff, who has worked really hard. We have worked together in developing this draft of what the special education program might look like when we reopen schools. So I know you have a lot of questions. We're gonna do our best to answer those through our presentations. Next slide. Okay, so what we know is we are going to follow, we're working closely with all the subcommittees, the district subcommittees, and we understand that health and safety and the use of personal protective equipment is essential for the work we're going to be doing with the children, with all the children, including the children with special needs. We have to consider, and I saw on the chat some questions about wearing masks. So we have to consider the different requirements and also the needs of our children with disabilities. For example, we have students who are medical fragile. We have students who need toileting and who need more of that hand over hand support. So we are making sure that our staff, our children are following all the safety and personal protective guidelines. The use of masks will be considered case by case depending on the unique needs of each of the children. California Department of Education has been very clear that children, for example, the preschool age or children with sensory needs will need to be looked at. And like I said before, it's going to be a case by case determination of the use of masks for the children. I have heard from the parents concerns about their children wearing masks, and we're going to be looking into that, like I said before, case by case. Staff, on the other hand, will be asked to follow strict protective equipment guidelines. Next slide. I think that you need to go before. Okay. So the special education staff will communicate with the families because we will need to amend the IEPs to reflect current schedules and the current educational programs. So we're going to be working with site principals and each of the families and making those necessary adjustments to the IEPs. All IEP meetings will continue, as Ms. Wolf said, online. All meetings will continue through online platforms or Google Meets or via phone. All future in-person assessments, I know those are some of your questions as well. When are we going to start assessments? So we are preparing a plan to bring back our assessment team, meaning the school psychologists, and to get started with the psychoeducational evaluations, hopefully the first week of August. We're going to work depending on each of the assessments that are due. As you know, we have triennials that are due. We have initial evaluations that are due. So we want to go ahead and we are going to provide in-person assessments. And I can explain you more about it if you're interested in knowing more about how are we going to conduct those in-person assessments. The parents have the choice to do some virtual assessments who are not the most accurate assessments to be done, but we understand we're in a national worldwide emergency, so we will need to adjust as such. We're currently at the district office completing some assessment in where we call the clean room, and it's a very protected room where we are following every health and safety guideline. We are hoping to use or have the parents using Google Voice so that you can call, we can communicate in an ongoing manner so that you feel updated and informed as to we are developing the step one of this reopening of the school. I also want to acknowledge every family situation and feelings about the current pandemics are unique. I received several phone calls and several emails with concerns, so we acknowledge and honor your questions, and we're always available for you. And remember that the reopening of the school is a collaborative effort, and we're excited to work together to ensure a smooth transition back to school. We're excited to bring the kids back to school. Next slide. Okay, so what is our planning? And remember, this is a draft, and kudos to all of those involved in drafting this. So we have students who are medical fragile, and they have not only medical but personal needs. So we're going to determine the space that will be utilized to maintain health and safety of the students. especially when we're assisting students with medical needs. Remember, the students with medical needs not only have instructional assistants supporting them, they also have nurses supporting them. So I'm going to share more of our plan. We have drafted a plan to bring the kids back to school for that particular group of children. Also, if they ensure the ability to quickly switch to virtual, as Ms. Wolf and Dr. Baker said, whenever it's needed, but also, as you will see when we talk about Schedule A and B, we have a virtual component that we would like to share with parents. Then we definitely want to keep staff, families, and students informed of school-wide procedures and protocol related to daily health screening, temperature checks, restroom use, as well as diapering, toileting, feeding, path of travel, use of campuses in general. We are already discussing the use of bathrooms, and we are already meeting with the teachers from those moderate severe groups, and making sure that we are streamlining all the guidelines following the shelter in place and the safety of our children and staff. Physical distancing, I know this is a concern, but I'm going to explain you more how we are bringing the kids to school, because you are right. Some of you are saying, how are you going to keep children in special education classes if you have 12 kids? How are you going to assure that the kids are keeping the social distancing rule? So I'm going to go further with more explanation on that. Next slide. So we are going to work with every single family, and we have over 1,000 children with IEPs in our district to ensure free and appropriate public education, knowing that, and I think Ms. Wolf shared this, these are new times. This is a new way of teaching and learning. Hopefully this will pass, but as of right now, we do have to follow the guidelines. So our goal is to make sure that we follow FAPE, free and appropriate public education, as well as all the legal component under the Individuals with Disability Act. So we're going to work with each family, each of the IEPs, and we are going to develop our best offer of FAPE. For example, students who are not returning to school will have 5 days a week of virtual instruction. And we're going to talk more about that. It could be 30-minute virtual lesson plus supplemental packets. We will discuss that more. Students returning to school in a hybrid model will come back to school 2 days a week, like the rest of the student population. Will have 2 days a week on site instruction, 3 days a week of virtual lessons. And I'm going to show you a sample of what a special day class schedule will look like for next year. Next slide. Okay, so for example, preschool, our little ones. So we are talking about as you know, preschool is morning session and PM session. We are hoping, in order to follow the guidelines of cleaning the classrooms constantly, consistently after cohorts, we are hoping to bring the kids and have 4 stable cohorts during the day in the morning. So for step 1, there won't be PM sessions. Again, this could change, like Ms. Wolf said, depending on the new guidelines. If the new guidelines change, we will need to adjust our schedules to follow those new guidelines, okay? It could be better. It could be that we have more of a possibility to change and bring more children. I'm not sure, because I'm not certain about what the new guidelines will be. So each day a week, 1 group, mornings, 4 students per class. Classes are 2.5 hours. So there will be the teacher to 8 for students for the preschool. Then the afternoons, the teachers are ready to incorporate the virtual and live instruction. They're very excited. Kudos to that preschool team. They do wonders. And they are already, I'm meeting with them on Monday because we're going to develop this whole schedule with more details. And they're going to be providing also not only access to the website, they're going to be providing read alouds and group activities in the afternoon. Wednesday will be virtual, so the children will receive virtual support, and the teachers will have opportunities to hold their IEPs or to do any assessment if needed. So that Wednesday across the board in Redwood City will be a day for teachers to do collaboration and planning. And for us in a special ed will be a day to conduct our IEPs. So parents will have access to preschool videos online for further support, and the number of students and a schedule can change based on updated transportation guidelines. Service providers are integrated into classroom lessons and virtual lessons. I know some of your questions is, what about occupational therapy? What about speech and language? For preschool, remember that they do their joint sessions and they do occupational therapy, speech and language, and classroom instruction in one group. But we also have the opportunity to do virtual teletherapy when we have our virtual time with the children. Remember that the schedule is based on social distancing. The guidelines for transportation could change, but right now they're asking for 4 children in each bus to maintain that social distancing. Next slide. And I don't know if Natalie, Maggie, if you want to add anything to it, feel free. Okay, I heard quiet. So an example of an SDC is special education classroom schedule. So we have A-B hybrid model. We have group A, for example, coming to school Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday, teachers do virtual meetings, planning, paperwork. Group B comes to school Thursday and Friday. So the special education classrooms, for example, if you have 12, 6 kids are group A, 6 kids are group B. So 6 children are coming Monday and Tuesday, and 6 children are coming Thursday and Friday. There will be cleaning every day after school. Wednesday and Saturdays actually is deep cleaning between cohorts. So there will be a lot of cleaning after children leave. It's actually cleaning and disinfecting. I already read the chat. Service provided sessions through teletherapy, and this is during step 1. And like I said before, each bus, as of right now, can only have, and this, we're talking about the small transportation buses. So next slide. So the person who developed this is actually part of this presentation today. She's part of our participants, and she's one of our brilliant teachers who came up with this example of her schedule. So she has Monday, Tuesday, teacher, instructional assistant, 1-to-1. This is her classroom schedule, already drafted. These people have worked so hard already, where she has 4 kids on Monday, same 4 kids on Tuesday. She has 2 instructional assistants who are 1-to-1 that will be working with that particular child that day. Then Wednesday we have planning. And then Thursday and Friday, she's bringing group B. And she has 6, 7, and 8. And then 9 and 10 are kids who, so the numbers you see are the kids, right? We can share the names. And so she, for example, is already allocating the 1-to-1 to the children who are in need or are entitled to one-on-one support. Then she has another component online with instructional assistants. And then she has different schedule when she is going to be under her guidance. The instructional assistant will be working with the children online. And then she is also suggesting paper packets because we feel that we need to continue supplementing and contribute it with more. And some of the children are really good with hands-on activities. So we're hoping to be able to send packets home. I hope I described it the way she drafted, and you know who you are, you're wonderful. So I hope I did a good job in explaining your schedule. So there is an expectation that the packets will be returned. And this is an example of the schedule that we would like to share with all our special day classes because we feel that it's going to work really well. Next slide. An example of special day class in middle school, similar scenario, A-B hybrid model, group A, Monday, Tuesday, group B, Thursday, Friday. For the medical fragile, and I want all the parents of those wonderful kids to know that they are coming back for days a week. They're coming back Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. The reason why is because we have the blessing that at their school site, they have 2 classrooms that communicate with each other. So we're gonna break out the medical fragile class, and kudos to Mary Can for running that class. She's just amazing, and all the aides and nurses that work there. And her suggested schedule is starting 8 a.m., 5 kids, 9 a.m., another 5 kids come on board. And there is 2 groups functioning in 2 different classes, so social distancing is even possible with these children. Remember that when we say social distancing, we are also aware that these children need hand over hand, not only support, but also they need toileting, and they need a lot of other kind of supports during the day. Service providers during step 1, sessions through teletherapy, okay? Next slide. Okay, I think, okay, I just wanna make sure we didn't miss, okay, resource specialist. The next one, okay. So there are different scenarios, and like Dr. Baker mentioned, and I believe also Ms. Wolf, we have pull out, we have a scenario 1, pull out. I saw in the chat some of the questions about pull out. I want everybody to know that our staff, even if they do pull out, they are part of that school staff. So they're not visitors, they're part of that cohort, they're part of that group. So they're following PPE and following strict cleaning guidelines. They're gonna be, one option is to pull the kids by IEP needs, by grade level, depending on what type of grouping they decide to do, and then bring them to their room where they're gonna be served. Another scenario is a combination of push in and pull out, knowing that the people who work at that particular site won't go anywhere. Our resource specialist teachers will stay at that site, as well as the aides. So we are going to make sure that they follow, as any other person on site will follow the PPE guidelines. There will be virtual sessions with special education staff, including service providers. There might be an additional cohort in middle school, like Ms. Wolf mentioned, to provide additional support to middle school. Next slide. Okay, mental health services. Oh, by the way, keep in mind that we will be evaluating the effectiveness of this model the first 3 weeks of school. We're very excited and hopeful that this is going to work. However, we have to assess the effectiveness of what we are doing. And we will, please know, we will adjust. We will make changes if necessary to whatever systems we have in place for our children with IEPs. Mental health services are already, and during shelter in place, the children continue receiving mental health support. And during step 1, they will continue receiving mental health support. It will be step 1 during virtual meetings, but eventually we're hoping to bring the mental health support to the site. School psychologists will be out there working closely with mental health providers, staff, and parents to support the needs of the students in this area. We take mental health support very seriously in our department. Next slide. And now your questions. So do you wanna, I kind of put together some of the questions and, that you sent through the survey. Some of you wanted to know the current status for students with IEP. Thank you, by the way, for responding to the survey. That was very helpful for us as a department. What type of support during online learning, especially students with attention deficits, behavioral needs? And I already addressed in-person assessments. I already addressed the medical fragile class schedule and the mental health support. The current status for students with IEPs, we must follow IDEA, and we have to follow our legal obligation to provide the support to the children. So the status continue. What might change is depending on the instructional minutes, we might need to amend the IEPs to reflect the new educational program under this new way of teaching and learning under COVID-19. The support during online learning, we're going to be ready to provide support through school psychologists and also some of our counselors and therapists, and how to best support children at home when they're doing the virtual learning, as well as in the classroom. But I now want to leave it open for your questions. So if Liz wants to help me, I will be more than happy.
Sure. Patricia, there are questions about the role of the instructional assistant, and is that person operating independently or in conjunction with the teacher?
Completely in conjunction, and that's a great question, completely in conjunction with the teachers. I'm actually really excited because what we noticed during COVID-19 is the tremendous value and support the instructional assistants can provide to our children. And to the families, because they also have helped as a bridge, as a communication link between staff and families. So we will be not only training our aides even more, but we're going to equip them to do their very best on site and during distance learning, but they're going to be working under the direct guidance of the teacher. Next, Liz.
Is it possible that different schools will be offering different schedules?
There is a possibility, particularly, remember we have different school models. We have preschool who operates as a mini school as it is, and we have the K-8, we have the kinder through 8th grade, we have the kinder through 5th grade, and then we have the comprehensive middle schools. So there is a possibility. Any change of schedules will be informed to the parents. You will be the first one to know what the proposed schedule will be, hopefully by the beginning of the school year. And if any changes needs to be made, you will be informed.
What kind of support will be given for the socialization of the young children?
You know what, I was talking to our subcommittee, and Natalie or Maggie, if you want to jump in. I know we were talking, one of our teachers was talking about, I think I have great ideas as to how to play with the children in the classroom. I know some of the concerns I read was about mainstreaming kids. And this is something that we take very seriously. But we have to, for step one, we will keep the kids in their classrooms with their teachers, especially for the special day classes. And then eventually we will learn the way that we are going to use to integrate them into general ed. But at this point, following the safety guidelines, we would like to keep them, or we will need to keep them where they are.
Some assessments require in-class observation. How can we appropriately assess a child during this time when classes are smaller and some children will be at home or possibly on full distance learning?
So what we are finding is we have a group of teachers who've been assessing it. You are absolutely right. The person who, thank you for that important question, is not the idealist scenario, but we are able, well, number one, observations in class could happen if we have the children coming back and it's under schedule A or B. Virtual assessment is not the best way to assess children, but we have found some very effective assessments that could be done virtually. So we're going to try, if the children are coming to school, we're going to try to do in-person assessments, but everything will be, you must give permission to this assessment. So we're going to collaborate and communicate with the parents as to how we are going to assess the children.
How will we support students with ASD who are mainstreamed but may have a difficult time accessing the curriculum virtually?
That's a very, very, so please know that virtual learning is difficult, number one, but it's even more difficult for some of our children with special needs. So we will need to look into individual cases and see what is the best way to deliver the instruction. Because the person who asked the question, we know that not everybody benefits from virtual. We know that. And especially the preschoolers, they were having a difficult time. Please understand that we are doing this to make sure that all the children are safe, as well as the staff and families in the community. But we will need to look into each of the cases individually. And please, if you can please reach out to me, we can even develop or having a meeting prior to the school year so that we can explore options for your child.
What might the support during the at-home learning days look like?
So like I explained before, so the teachers will provide instruction schedule A or group A and group B, and then they are going to develop online lessons to be given to the children. So you will get more specific as we get closer to the beginning of the year, but the teachers have been trained in different online platforms, and the teachers participated in an amazing week of training during the first week of June, including all the teachers in special education. So they have learned how to use different platforms to engage and connect children. And thank you, Linda and Liz and all the people, Wendy, all the people involved in creating those trainings for our staff. The instructional assistants participated as well.
Okay, if my student with an IEP participates in full-time distance learning, what kind of RSP support might he or she get?
If the student is going full-time
distance learning,
full-time distance learning. Mm-hmm. So that's another great question, and we are developing a system in how we are going to support those children who might be receiving instruction only at home. So we don't have the plan ready as of right now, but we will have a plan as we know more, and how we are going to provide the support to those children.
Yeah, and we would want to, it's individualized, right, Dr. Polina? So we would want to meet with the parent and work with the parents to give the student who's doing all online, hybrid, and any sorts. We really want to work with the family, because as we all know, the IEP is individualized education plan. So we really want to, even in this time, we want to individualize those plans for our students.
And thank you, Maggie. And remember that you have a team in our office. We're about 8, and we're ready to work with all of you, plus your teachers, your resources, your service providers. So nothing is going to happen that you will not know. So whatever plan we have, you're going to be the first person to be involved, because you are part of the decision-making team. So know that you're going to be communicated as we get closer to the beginning of the school year.
So there's 5 minutes left, and so I don't know if Dr. Baker or our board president want to say any final concluding remarks, or if you have some final things to say. You've done a great job of answering a lot of these questions. A lot of the questions are very similar. So thank you.
So I just wanted to tell the parents in the community that you all have our email contact information. Please email us. We are proud to say that we do answer emails, and if you have any questions that you feel is pressing before August, please, we would like to hear back from you.
And then, excuse me, this is John Baker. And before this session ends, I just want to let you know that as I review the questions, a lot of these questions are some of the same questions that came up last week on Thursday. And what I'm going to do, we're going to cross-reference some that were definitely special ed and make sure we get the answers to the special ed questions. But the ones that are for general ed, we have a lot of responses for those questions already. And if I'm not mistaken, Jorge, those questions we can put up on with the responses on the website tomorrow. Is that correct?
Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. Yeah, so we're working on translating those questions from, those answers from English to Spanish, and then the ones from Spanish to English. So as soon as we have all that wrapped up, we'll be posting that on the website and on the same page where all this information is located.
Perfect. And then the special ed can have their own
Yes,
whatever section for their questions, because I see the ones that are general ed that a lot of the parents asked last week. And so those are already answered, but the ones that are specifically for special ed, those need to be answered and put into a different format with a different title on them. So the parents can go right to that website and then hit the link and there they'll be.
We'll do that, yes.
Okay, perfect. Again, thank you all for participating this evening. I know this is skeptical maybe, and as you're thinking of this, we have been working with this for weeks along with other districts in San Mateo County. And as Ms. Wolf said, the guidelines seem to be changing often. We just had some updated guidelines today at a meeting that I was at with the superintendents in the county. And so we'll be reflecting those guidelines into the plan. I ask you to be patient with us. On July 15th, the full plan is coming before the board for their approval. During that plan, it will be specified what it will look like, and then we will be holding, after that plan, it's not going to be a survey, it's going to be a manner for parents to commit to a hybrid model or to commit to social distancing. We need to know how many children need to be in each different program. That will most likely take place after the July 15th meeting, and I'm assuming that it'll be that first Monday after July 15th, which is if I look at this calendar correctly, it's July 20th when we'll be sending something out to parents to respond to, and we're hoping that we're going to create a venue for you to use your phone and not to go onto your computer, your laptop, but to use your phone, listen to the message, and then press a number accordingly to let us know what program you'd like to be in, whether it's the cohort model or it is the distance learning model. As we continue on and there are updates that are given to parents vis-a-vis a newsletter, Jorge pushes that out. So please make sure you watch for that. And that newsletter is normally pushed out, so you'll get a text. And if we're not blocked, you'll know that the newsletter is coming and here's the link to it. So please unblock us if you have us blocked. I know we're sending out a lot of information, but this will enable you to know exactly when meetings are taking place and when new information is coming out. And I just thank you all so much for being really patient with us. And as I said previously, the special education questions will have their own format, and we will have that in place hopefully within a week's time. Just like last week, we had the general ed ones. They were done as of this morning, making sure that we responded to each of the questions. So again, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Polino. Thank you, staff from special education, for being with us this evening. And thank you, Ms. Wolf. Thank you all.